Stunning news tonight out of San Francisco. The illegal immigrant accused of killing Kate Steinle found not guilty.
People in the federal, state, and local government who have blood on their hands. It is the conversion of America into a sanctuary nation instead of a sovereign nation that has endangered us.
This tax plan has been blown up, remade, torn down, and built again in a late-night session on the Senate floor.
I am not going to support any cuts to people who are on the program and need those benefits.
There it is.
But I want this program to survive. I'm going to acknowledge that we need this program.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning from New York City. It is Friday. You made it through the week, but a whole lot happened overnight that we need to get to very quickly for you. Welcome to Fox and Friends First on this Friday morning. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Heather Childers. Well, straight to that Fox News alert. Shock and outrage, to say the very least, flooding the country over the verdict in the Kate Steinle case. An illegal immigrant who was deported 5 times, found not guilty by a jury in the sanctuary city of San Francisco. Not guilty. Jackie Ibanez joins us now live with reaction that is reigniting a national debate. Good morning, Jackie.
Hey, good morning, Heather. Well, the verdict not only shocking but heartbreaking. The illegal immigrant responsible for Kate Steinle's death was found not guilty of murder and not guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Why? Because the defense claimed it was an accident, saying Jose Zarate didn't mean to shoot Steinle on a San Francisco pier back in 2015. Instead, the gun, which had been stolen from a Bureau of Land Management agent's car, went off by itself when he picked it up. Prosecution's argument? Zarate was playing his own version of Russian roulette, shooting Steinle, who was walking the pier with her father on purpose.
The verdict that came in today was not one we were hoping for. This really is about the Steinle family. They've shown incredible resolve during this whole process, and our hearts go out to them.
Now, whether the gun went off by accident or on purpose, one thing is clear. The case is a symbol of a broken immigration system. At the time of the shooting, Zarate had 7 prior felony convictions and was wanted for his 6th deportation. But the sanctuary city refused to follow the law by not turning him over to ICE. Instead, releasing him back into the streets, allowing him to shoot and kill an innocent woman who died in her father's arms. Kate's brother telling a local station the system failed Kate from the start of the chain of events. President Trump calling the verdict disgraceful, tweeting this: "No wonder the people of our country are so angry with illegal immigration." Zarate's defense lawyer politicizing the verdict and accused of rubbing salt on the wound while taking a shot at President Trump. Listen.
Before you start tweeting or commenting on this outcome, just reflect on the fact that all of us get these protections. We get, a right to a jury. We get these burdens of proof, and we have to respect that a jury that spent this much time on this case, got it right.
Zarate was convicted of being a felon in possession of a firearm, which carries a sentence between 16 months and 3 years in prison. But immigration officials say they will deport Zarate back to Mexico for the 6th time. Heather?
Yeah, for a 6th time, so he can come back in for a 6th time. All right, thank you so much, Jackie. We appreciate it. We're going to talk much more about this. Joining me now to react to this verdict is attorney Christy Kunzig. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
I want to know what your first reaction was when you heard about this verdict. I mean, mine was complete heartache for the Steinle family.
I mean, that and then shock. Just knowing what happened throughout this case, knowing that the father testified on the witness stand and that the jury had to be a unanimous decision and unanimously decided to acquit him. It was really shocking.
I mean, how in the world? He claims that this was an accident, and you said that he'd actually also changed his story.
Right. So at first he said, he had been aiming at a seal and he was trying to shoot the seal. Then he said he may have stepped on it and it just fired that way. And then there's also witness testimony that says he had been flinging it around his finger and it may have accidentally discharged that way. So there are multiple accounts from him about how this accidentally happened.
So why do you think the verdict went this way? Why not even just manslaughter?
Well, that's something that's really interesting, because manslaughter, it could have accidentally discharged if he had been reckless, criminally negligent. There are ways you could say, it was an accident, but it was an accident that maybe you should have known would be a problem and it could have caused death, and it in fact it did.
Right.
And so it's really interesting that they found that it wasn't a manslaughter conviction and they in fact acquitted him. I think that a part of that may be the fact that the defense brought up that it ricocheted and really made that a big part of their case, and maybe they took that into account more than they should have. And other than that, I have to just assume there were some political reasons that they decided to make this decision.
That's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, is this a political verdict? Is that what happened here?
I have to say, of course it's a political verdict, because you're looking at San Francisco and the facts of the case. It doesn't make sense logically that this would be something that 12 jurors could come up with and acquit.
Well, it's a sanctuary city, first of all.
Right.
If he had been deported the way he should have been, if he would not have been allowed in this country to begin with, as he should not have been, this would not have happened at all.
Agreed. And one of the things in the case, they really didn't dwell on any of those facts. They kind of kept a lot of that out, that he had been deported so many times, that there were other issues. They really didn't bring that up to the jury. And not that they should have brought all of that up, but that should have been more of an issue than it was.
But his attorney sure brought it up as soon as it was over. His first statement.
Right. It was interesting. His first statement says this wasn't a political decision, and then he starts right into politics.
Absolutely. Yeah, and talked about President Trump and how he had brought this up as far back as his campaign. And I think that this will definitely turn the tide in favor of Republicans and in favor of people in terms of the wall.
And I think you're completely right, because people are outraged by this decision, because how could they really acquit this guy who says, I fired the gun, I shot her, she's now dead, and it's because of me, and I shouldn't have been here in the first place.
He shouldn't have been here, he shouldn't have had the gun.
Right.
Which was the only charge that he is now facing.
Right, that's the only charge that stuck. That's the only thing they found him guilty of.
I know that he's being deported, allegedly, as soon as possible, but what other options does the Steinle family have at this point? Anything?
At this point, I don't really see any way that they can appeal successfully, so they really aren't left with any good options.
It's just such a shame. It really is a travesty. Thank you so much for joining us, Christy. Much more on this throughout the day, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, just hours from now, in other news, President Trump's landmark tax bill could face a final vote. Maybe. Senate Republicans working around the clock, making some modifications to push it across the finish line, all to win over the holdouts. Doug Luzader joins us now live in Washington, D.C. with where the bill stands right now. Good morning, Doug.
Heather, good morning. Is this a speed bump, or could this kill the bill? We may find out later today. Republicans have had a tough time, among other things, winning over fiscal hawks, folks who are concerned about the impact that this tax reform plan could have on the deficit. There was talk about building in a trigger mechanism where taxes would automatically go up if the promised economic growth never materializes. The Senate parliamentarian said, no, you can't do it that way. So then there was talk about trying to build in some tax increases that would hit in later years.
We're still working, but the amount of money that was going to be a part of the trigger is now just automatically added to the base bill.
So you're happy with everything?
I'm happy with that. I'm still working.
Again, Republicans seem pretty confident still that they can get this done. Democrats are going to try to block this every step of the way, and that led to a heated exchange after Vermont's Bernie Sanders accused Republicans of trying to cut entitlement programs.
I am not going to support any cuts to people who are on the program and need those benefits.
There it is.
But I want this program to survive. I'm going to acknowledge that we need this program for the next generation, too.
Well, we may see some progress on this later today as the Senate gets back to work. One thing to keep in mind, even if this plan passes the Senate, it still has to be reconciled with the plan that has already passed the House. That is not going to be an easy process because these are two very different tax plans that are emerging.
Yeah, with the goal ultimately of having it on the president's desk by Christmas is what he said he wanted. And it's December 1st. Thank you so much, Doug. Appreciate it. Well, this is another story that we've been following for you. The massive 4-day search now for this toddler who vanished from her North Carolina home intensifying. Police are now asking local people there to help find 3-year-old Mariah Woods. So cute. Well, the FBI and the Marines using boats, horses, and canines to scour the entire county. Police just sent several items of interest, that's what they're calling them, to the FBI lab in Quantico for testing. Mariah was last seen Sunday night by her mother's boyfriend, that's their story, who claims that he told her to go back to bed around midnight. But when morning came, Mariah was gone and the back door found unlocked. Well, explosive new revelations about the secret tarmac meeting between then Attorney General Loretta Lynch and former President Bill Clinton while his wife was under investigation. Judicial Watch releasing 29 new pages of FBI documents overnight. Now, they reveal, apparently, that the feds were more concerned about news of the meeting actually leaking to the public rather than the actual meeting itself. The documents also show that then FBI Director James Comey seemed to learn of the meeting from news reports. The controversial 2016 meeting took place just days before Comey publicly cleared Hillary Clinton over her private email server. And Matt Lauer demanding, $30 million, a $30 million payday, despite being fired over sexual misconduct allegations. Page 6 reporting that Lauer's lawyers are working on a plan to force NBC to pay the longtime Today host the remainder of his contract. $30 million. Lauer just emerged from hiding for the first time since the scandal broke. New photos from DailyMail.com show him leaving his Hamptons home to meet with a lawyer friend. At least 8 women have come forward so far accusing him of misconduct. Lauer has apologized. All of his social media accounts, though, have been deleted amid the firestorm. And now some more about Nancy Pelosi. The Democrats, the Republicans, they are coming together on at least one thing. John Conyers, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle now demanding that the congressman step down after an avalanche of sexual harassment allegations.
The brave women who came forward are owed justice. Congressman Conyers should resign.
I think he should resign. I think he should resign immediately. I've just been briefed on the torrent of allegations, and I think he should.
Yeah, complete about-face for Pelosi there. Growing calls for Conyers to quit come as the embattled Democrat is hospitalized this morning for what they're saying is a stress-related illness. The 88-year-old and longest-serving member of Congress is accused of harassing female staffers and settling a lawsuit with taxpayer money. And all players standing for the national anthem during Thursday night football, but one Dallas Cowboys player, defensive tackle David Irving, raised his fist at the end. Fans may have had it with America's team, the Cowboys. AT&T Stadium, which seats over 90,000 people. Take a look. What do you think? Reportedly, it was less than half full at kickoff. Well, the time now is about 13 minutes after the top of the hour, and your DNA is an abomination. A student newspaper slammed over an anti-white column. How the paper is now responding. And senators working through the night to rewrite their tax reform bill ahead of today's crucial vote. But can they win over the holdouts? Our next guest breaks it all down for us, what's in, what's out, and what it means for all of us. Welcome back to Fox and Friends. First, the Senate tax reform debate set to pick up, or back up, we should say, this morning. After a marathon late-night session, Republicans making some last-minute changes to the bill in an effort to win over some key holdouts. So how can they get it passed? Here to weigh in is CPA business analyst Daniel Geltrude. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate having you back. So a lot of work was done overnight, but they're still at a stalemate. What is the main issue?
The main issue here is how much these tax cuts are going to add to our deficit. And that's really where we got caught. Remember, it's razor thin as to whether this is going to pass. So they lost 3 fiscal hawks on this issue of increasing the deficit over a 10-year period. And
the issue is that there's some discrepancy in the numbers.
Right. So where we started was when the plan was tested stagnantly. It said, okay, it's going to add $1.4 trillion to the deficit.
Okay.
Steve Mnuchin, Steve Mnuchin, the Secretary of the Treasury, said it's okay because we're going to put $2 trillion on of additional revenue because of the cuts. Now, yesterday gets scored independently, and they say it's only going to add $400 billion of revenue. Now we have a $1 trillion hole.
So you have to make up that money somewhere.
And that's the issue.
All right. And so how do you think they're going to do it?
I think they're going to keep the corporate tax cuts in place because that's the primary drive behind this whole thing. My opinion here, they are going to phase out the individual tax cuts over, let's say, a 5 or 6 year period instead of having it go the full 10 years.
People will not be happy about that. No, not happy about that. So do you think that that has more of a chance of passing versus increasing the corporate tax rate?
It will pass in the Senate. But what's going to happen in reconciliation when you bring in the House? Because they're not going to be happy about that. This bill is far from being passed. Not saying it won't get done, but there's a long road ahead because every time you make a change, you may lose a vote. And in the Senate, we can't lose a vote.
So why do you think it passed so quickly up till now? Do you think that some of the folks that said suddenly, okay, yes, I'll vote, let's move it forward, they knew that this was going to happen?
In the Senate, I think they thought that they were going to be able to get this trigger mechanism, meaning if our plan doesn't work out here financially, we'll be able to automatically trigger some tax increases. When that fell apart because it wasn't allowed per the Senate rules, Senate parliamentarian, that's where they ran into a problem.
So there wouldn't be tax increases. They're not talking about that, but they're talking about phasing out the tax cuts. Basically the same thing, right?
It is the same thing. Yeah. Different way of cutting it out.
Different way of saying it, yeah.
Because you have to take something away. If you don't want the deficit to increase, you have to take something away.
So bottom line for individuals, you and I, middle class America with families to support, good or bad thing for them?
If you're in a blue state like we are, New York, New Jersey, I don't think that this is a great plan. However, the other side is this. What we're seeing in the stock market because of the corporate tax cuts, that should increase the economic output. That benefits everyone.
And it's already happening, just on the possibility. All right, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll see what happens today. We'll have you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the time now is about 20 minutes after the top of the hour, and hundreds of students fighting back after $500,000 of their tuition money is used to buy a safe space for illegal immigrants. One of them joins us live with why he says this is a serious problem. And first, he was GQ's Citizen of the Year. Now, anthem-kneeling Colin Kaepernick has been given a new award, and social media not too impressed with it. Carly Shimkus joins us up next live with the outrage online. Good morning. And welcome back to Fox & Friends First. Despite not having played all season, Colin Kaepernick's protests have earned him another honor. Sports Illustrated naming the anthem-kneeling former quarterback the Muhammad Ali Legacy Award recipient. Social media sounding off. Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7 Sirius XM 115 here with reaction. Good morning.
Good morning, Heather. Each year the magazine, along with the Ali family, honors someone who they say embodies the ideals of sportsmanship, leadership, and philanthropy, and has used sports as a platform to change the world. Well, this year that person is Colin Kaepernick. The magazine made the announcement saying in the last 16 months, Kaepernick's truth has been twisted, distorted, and used for political gain. It has cost him at least a year of his NFL career and the income that should have come with it, but still it is his truth. Kaepernick is often compared to Ali because of Ali's controversial opposition to the Vietnam War. Social media, though, sounding off like you said. Somebody said, canceled my subscription. Oh, wait, I didn't have one. And Chad also tweeted, what an insult to Muhammad Ali. Now, Kaepernick was also named GQ's Citizen of the Year earlier this month, so he is really cleaning up in the War Department.
Yeah, and from what I read, Hollywood is getting ready to kind of use him a lot too.
Oh,
so.
Yeah, it is award show season, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. You're right.
Now, Walmart, there's a T-shirt threatening journalists, but they've pulled it.
That's right. So this T-shirt appeared on Walmart.com. It says "Rope Tree Journalists." some assembly required. The shirt was essentially threatening to hang journalists. Well, a journalist advocacy group complained, saying it is our belief that at the least T-shirts or any other items bearing such words simply inflame the passions of those who either don't like or don't understand the news media. Walmart acted swiftly. They said this shirt was put up by a third-party vendor, and when it was brought to their attention, they immediately took it down. Ashley on Twitter says, good gracious, Walmart, who is your men's apparel buyer? Pretty shocking to see on that website, right? And Krista also says that's disgusting. It's dangerous. Why did Walmart even have to pull this? Really good point there. The shirt should have never been put up on that website, right?
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the never-ending debate, dogs and cats. You're either a dog person or you're a cat person.
Yeah.
I'm a dog person.
Okay.
What are you?
Well, I think I would have to say a little bit of both, I guess. Maybe more dog person. But, you know, cat people are not going to like them. A Vanderbilt study said that dogs are, without a doubt, smarter than cats. They say dogs have the most neurons, though not the largest brain. Trade-off between body mass and number of neurons in the cerebral cortex of large carnivoran species. Wow. So, a whole lot of reaction to this one. Paige on Twitter says, breaking, cats don't care if dogs are smarter. Actually, cats just don't care in general.
That is true.
I mean, come on. There's no such thing as like a seeing eye cat.
That's
you know,
true, too.
Like dogs have rescued many people.
Yeah, I want to know
world.
my friend Cheryl Cassoni's response to that, though, because she's a huge cat person. So, all right, thank you so
we'll
much.
Have to ask her. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Carly. Well, this Fox News alert now. Shock and disgust, to say the least, spreading across the country after the illegal immigrant accused of killing Kate Steinle is found not guilty of murder.
It doesn't make sense logically that this would be something that 12 jurors could come up with and acquit.
It's disgusting, and San Francisco ought to be ashamed of themselves.
Your comments are pouring in, and we are reading them up next. Definitely stay tuned for that. And the terrifying moment that a monster shark weaves between unsuspecting swimmers and a very popular tourist destination. News alert: shock and outrage flooding over the country over this verdict in the Kate Steinle case. An illegal immigrant who was deported 5 times found not guilty in San Francisco, a sanctuary city. The defense winning by playing the "it was an accident" card. Meanwhile, saying that Garcia Zarate did not mean to shoot Steinle on a pier back in 2015. Instead, the gun, which he had stolen, by the way, from a Bureau of Land Management agent's car, they say that went off by itself when he picked it up. President Trump calling the verdict disgraceful, tweeting, "No wonder the people of our country are so angry with illegal immigration." The jury did convict Zarate on a felony firearm charge. The maximum sentence for that, 3 years in prison. Now, the stunning acquittal comes at the height of the national debate on immigration. Legal analyst and Trump campaign surrogate David Wall says that this verdict will propel the president's push to secure the border.
The reality is this isn't about hate, it's about anger. This guy was deported 5 times and 5 times came back. Whether or not what he did with that firearm legally amounted to murder is irrelevant. The point is he came to the pier. He had a loaded weapon. He fired the loaded weapon and ricocheted off the cement and killed Kate Steinle. This verdict, if there's a silver lining, will fuel the efforts to deal with these immigration issues, such as the wall, such as sanctuary cities. That city, San Francisco, rolls out the red carpet so people like that man can come into the city and victimize their citizens. It's disgusting. On a legal level, on a social level, on a political level, every level, it's outrageous. And San Francisco ought to be ashamed of themselves.
Well, as you can imagine, the not guilty verdict reigniting the national debate over that broken immigration system. Jackie Banya's here with the online outrage. Jackie, it was quick and it was swift, and people are angry.
Yeah, people are definitely upset about this outcome this morning, Heather. Politicians and media figures alike voicing their shock and anger over the acquittal. Conservative commentator Ann Coulter tweeting this: jury convinced that illegal alien killed Kate Steinle accidentally. She would still be alive if we had a wall. Former Congressman Congressman Joe Walsh tweeting, America 2017, illegals are protected and Americans are left to die. America is lost. Former Republican vice president candidate Sarah Palin writing on Twitter that the verdict was, quote, outrageous, and says the illegal alien who shot her was just given more rights, grace, and favor than the devastated Steinle family. San Francisco is not a safe place. A reaction from you also pouring in this morning. Terry on Facebook posting a terrible miscarriage of justice, no consequences at all, at least involuntary manslaughter. And Brad agrees, but says not only is he guilty, but so is California.
Yeah, a lot of people feeling that way about California and the sanctuary cities right now.
Yeah, and a lot of people just confused with the involuntary manslaughter.
Right. Why we were just talking about that earlier. Why in the world did he not at least get that? Because he had the gun and it was an accident. That's all you had to prove. It doesn't make any sense at all. All right. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And everyone, of course, keep giving us your opinion on that. Thank you. Well, the search for a brazen Sin City robber ramping up this morning. Las Vegas police releasing this new surveillance video of the armed suspect. And watch him there strolling into the world-famous Bellagio Hotel, hoping that someone can help identify him there, if you can tell. Well, he is then seen leaning over a poker cage to demand money from the cashier with gamblers sitting just feet away. The thief takes the unknown amount of cash and then runs right back out the front door. To Texas State University student paper slammed over an opinion column in which the writer says that he, quote, hates white people. The article in the University Star titled, Your DNA is an Abomination, reads in part, I see white people as an aberration. Remember this, I hate you because you shouldn't exist. This is what in the world? Well, the paper's editor-in-chief wrote an apology after backlash from students. The university's president also apologizing, calling it a racist article. How was that printed to begin with? That's a lot of questions there. And then there's this. A taxpayer-funded college in California wants to convert a portion of its student computer lab into a safe space for LGBTQ and undocumented students. But those who don't identify as either are fighting back to keep their money from funding any part of the $500,000 project. Here to weigh in is Santa Monica College student and campus reform correspondent Ben Kolodny. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Ben.
Thank you so much for having me.
So $500,000 for this safe space. You started this petition not wanting your money to go to these groups that you don't identify with.
Well, that's not 100% true. I myself am bisexual. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that we're spending $500,000 of people's money for something that they themselves don't want and that our administration doesn't believe we need. Our administration did a survey, and they surveyed 50 LGBTQ, DACA, undocumented students, and found that not a single one of them felt unsafe on campus. So the fact that we're still pushing this and that our administration is still moving forward with this should tell you it's an agenda and not something we need.
Well, let's take a look at the actual master plan as it was stated. It was to develop a plan to establish a gender equity center to serve all students interested in or having a need for services regarding issues of gender, sexuality, identity, and inclusion. So is there a need for this?
Not according to the students who were surveyed. As I said, 50 students were surveyed, and not a single one of them felt unsafe on this campus. And that's what's so great about, Leadership Institute's campus reform. They're able to bring us so much information across the country, and this is just another one of the textbook cases of campuses pushing an agenda that the students don't want. We see this all over the country. Administrators are trying to push what they believe is necessary and coddling the children by not really accepting our words and our voices when we see no, we don't need this.
So you went to this meeting that I mentioned at the top, this petition that you had, and you were unlawfully removed from the meeting. What happened?
So the California state law governing public meetings states that I must be allowed to make a public comment after new information has been made. Unfortunately, though, there was no public comment section at that point, and myself and another student were both ejected for our objection to this awful, awful waste of our money and of a valuable student resource, our computer lab, which is going to be taken up to make space for this place.
Yeah, and let's take a look at that, the actual physical proposal. They want to renovate the existing computer lab space, convert the area into this gender social justice center. They say that it'll provide counseling, lounging, and some collaborative spaces. But the bottom line, you say, is the administration doesn't want to pay for it, so they want the students to pay for it instead.
That is 100% the case. The administration is the one that introduced this proposal. The administration is the one that backed this proposal, created this proposal, and now they are putting it in the only place that can make us pay for it as students, in a certain part of our campus that is paid for by the students only. And that is truly just unacceptable and should not be allowed. The Santa Monica College students are outraged, and over 400 of us have signed a petition saying that this is not okay.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they will let your voices be heard as well. And so the whole issue can be debated as it should be. Ben Kolodny, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a good day and good luck. Well, now to this Fox News alert. The rogue nation of North Korea ramping up the rhetoric, the brand new proof that Kim Jong-un may be preparing for another launch. And the tax proposal already making America win.